7. Rise for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Jason. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, public comment. Public comment at the meeting. Public comment shall refer to items on the agenda. Do we have any in-person public comment on agenda items? Do we have any online public comment on agenda items? That move on to approval of the minutes. Motion to approve the Board of Education, June 11th, 2025. By Bob. Second,
Second.
Amy. Any discussion changes? They look okay to me. Right? Right. Yeah. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, before we get to superintendent's report, which I'm sure is pretty significant today, so I want to welcome Christine Cohen to the board, selected for Durham. With that, congratulations and welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Leggett, I'll pass it on to you.
Great.
I'm just gonna grab the pen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be delivering my first superintendent report for Regional School District 13. I really wanted to begin by expressing my very deep gratitude for the warm welcome I've received from so many people across the district. It's been really nice. I've received a lot of great emails. Some people have stopped into the office to say hello, so it's really been wonderful. I'm thrilled to be working in a place that very clearly values education, community, and the well-being of children above everything else. That's been very apparent so far. I'm interested in pursuing our collective commitment, remaining 100% focused on students, ensuring all academic success, a sense of belonging, and overall well-being. So together, I know that we're going to strive for excellence, rise above challenges that'll come our way, and foster a culture of kindness, thoughtfulness, and growth. I already know firsthand this is a remarkable community, one where families feel supported and where connections between school, home, and the broader region are very strong. And seeing this firsthand, this level of care has really been amazing. So thank you. That's just a general statement to get going. And now I'll get into some business that we've already started in on. I think Dave and I are both new. Are we on day 5 today? Day 5 in the district. Okay. Just a quick update that we are in contact with the YMCA to develop after school or childcare solutions aligned with the newly revised calendar for the beginning of the year. We really value this important partnership, and we want to work to meet the needs of families and ensure that this is a smooth transition into 25-26. I've been talking to them, and there should be a flyer that will be available hopefully by the end of this week that principals can send out to make sure that families have enough time to make arrangements and do all of those signups. In terms of the calendar, from what I've learned so far, the newly approved calendar reflects a lot of thoughtful input from across the district, even though there were some tough decisions that needed to be made to accommodate the construction schedule. I also learned today just what a feat it is, the construction schedule, and how well everything is going so far. So that's fantastic. We want to make sure that we always have clear and proactive communications about all of these so that families and staff can plan ahead. And that will include everything from this master calendar adjustment to bus schedules, drop-off procedures, et cetera. We've already started having some conversations with the principals about those things as well. I'm excited to say that this week is our leadership retreat. So we've already marked this as a week that I get to spend with the whole leadership team. And I wanted to share some highlights of the work that we're doing this week. We engaged over the last 2 days of restorative practices training. What I really want to emphasize is that restorative practices is not new. It's maybe a new name for people, but it's not new. It's really about creating a climate where every member of the school committee is feeling, community is feeling seen, heard, and respected. So we, as a leadership team, had the opportunity to discuss climate and culture activities that have been already happening in the district and how restorative practices will become a foundation of everything that we do. I wanted to highlight a few things about restorative practices, although you're going to be hearing a lot more at the beginning of the school year. 80% of restorative practices is proactive. It's about really laying a foundation of building good relationships, fostering inclusion, a feeling of belonging, and creating a strong foundation for success. 20% is responsive, how we respond to some behavior and student discipline in ways that prioritize learning and accountability. So a common misconception of restorative practices is that there aren't any consequences for kids. But in truth, what it does is there are consequences. It's just that there are very meaningful consequences, and consequences that repair harm, that they restore relationships and reinforce expectations and a sense of belonging for all students involved. This way, there are disciplinary consequences that continue to work towards bringing students into the community and not making anybody feel separate. I'm going to invite the board to do an experience, a restorative circle in our September meeting. So be prepared for that. Don't be nervous. It's going to go well. And this will help you better understand and model what students and staff are going to be engaging in this year and moving forward. As of tomorrow, I think I sent a message out to the community. I don't know how many had a chance to read it, but we're preparing to launch the strategic planning process. I always believe in strategic planning that builds on what is called appreciative inquiry. So that means an approach that honors what's already working, what's already good in the district. So I don't want people to think when we go into strategic planning that things are automatically torn apart. We really build on what's going well, and then we clearly identify opportunities for improvement. It's going to be a collaborative effort, so I hope everybody has a lot of good ideas, and by everybody, I mean absolutely everybody in these communities. And you'll have a lot of opportunities to provide input throughout this whole process. So I will be kicking off planning to plan with the leadership team starting tomorrow morning. I'm sure you already know this, but we're really fortunate to have an outstanding central office team that I've had the opportunity to work with so far. I'm incredibly grateful for their professionalism, their insight, and their support. And I'm also pleased to welcome Dave Kimball, who is the new principal at Strong Middle School, and to celebrate in the experience that Noelle Durkin also brings to the leadership role. So as new members of this leadership team, I think together they represent a really powerful combination of knowledge, skill, and heart for middle school students. And just a final focus on some teaching and learning. I'm excited to begin learning more from Liza Siegel to get up to date on curriculum instruction and assessment across the district. We haven't taken that deep of a dive into that with leadership team, but we're going to get there. And we started to have some initial discussions about scheduling professional learning throughout the school year. And I'm going to be discussing a little bit more later in the agenda about the curriculum position specifically, so we'll get to that later. We did start scheduling presentations of students at each monthly board meeting, so we want to make sure that you're hearing something about student learning at each meeting, and that schedule will be completed probably within the next month or so. This is my first time working on creating the board agenda and the board packet. I think what I'm going to try to do moving forward is I'm going to try to make sure that absolutely all information is linked in the agenda by Friday before the meeting, and see if we can just have all of that out there. Things come up, so I can't say that there might not be a Friday that turns into a Saturday or a Monday, but I'm going to do my best to make sure absolutely everything is linked in that agenda by the Friday before. And just as a final thing, we started talking about some ways that we want to communicate with everybody in the school community. And we had a discussion about the snapshot today. So what we're talking about for our structure is that the snapshot will go out its usual 3 times a year. As a superintendent, I plan on putting out a district newsletter monthly. So that will go out. And then the board has their communications, which is up to you, but from what I understand, it might look like a quarterly kind of communication. So in terms of a structure for those three things, I think that's where we stand at this point. So, and communication is always two-way as a final note, so everybody knows how to reach me, and I look forward to speaking with all of you. So thank you.
No, I think that structure for the snapshot works really well, especially the tie-in with the monthly. And I know we had talked about how that would work in structure. So there'll be a lot of information coming out.
Yep.
Helpful. You're going to start that in August.
We are going to start, I'm going to start my newsletter in August, and then the snapshot, I think the first one is October. And then the only other thing that we do have is we have an ONG update, and just like more of an anecdotal update from the Strong administration. So right now, that's part of my superintendent's report, but I think what the board had talked about is making that a regular agenda item moving forward. Thank you. Yep. Okay. All right. So just before I hand it over to ONG, just some anecdotal information. The swing space work has begun at Strong. Boxes have been moved for Memorial starting this week, and another move will take place for desks, et cetera, if they're being moved probably mid-August. Schools will be accessible during the summer to staff. However, there could be some sections that are closed off periodically if there's work being done in that area. The 12-month staff transition to Strong on July 1st. Custodians have been extremely busy and cleaning rooms and furniture that aren't being impacted by the move or the reconfiguration. And items from the staff and team and budgets are starting to be ordered already. So, and then ONG, you can take it from here.
Great, Dave. Thanks.
You, Dave.
You guys speak from here rather than the mic, okay?
Yeah.
Dave with ONG. So yes, well, welcome aboard. And Dave, welcome aboard to you. You've had some interface with Paul already, right? And you'll get to know each other pretty well over the summer. So, do you want me to go through the update that we put together, Kim, just to kind of list? Sure. So,
If you want to come up to the table, it might be easier just because I think the way the camera is, I can't hear you online. Thank you.
So, the last time we came here was I think it was the 18th of June, around there. So since then, we've issued and awarded a contract to the trade contractor performing the work, Diversity Construction Group. We've got their contract finalized. They actually mobilized to the site this past Monday and are actively engaged with doing demolition activities. But they're also doing a lot of the paperwork stuff, like trying to doing the design work for the foundations that will support the new portable classrooms. We've had a few coordination meetings with the portable trailer or the portable classroom vendor, the engineer, the architect, to make sure that we've got the best, most streamlined approach to getting the foundations in and getting the classrooms, because that's, as we've talked about, that's one of the most critical paths to get students in the building, is getting those portable classrooms there. So that's something that we're actively tracking every day. We've had meetings. We had a meeting on site last week with neighbors to talk about some concerns. We also did we've been working on a schematic design estimate based on QA&M's documents, and we have a meeting with them tomorrow to do sort of like a page turn and really refine that to make sure that we understood the documents, because when they're in schematic form, there are certainly things to be interpreted in the documents to make sure that as we're putting a cost estimate together, that it's accurate and reflective of the scope of work. We've done our official pre-construction to construction handoff meeting with ONG to make sure that Paul, our superintendent, Dan Hetzler, our project manager, myself and Mark Sedensky, along with other resources, are in communication with what it was that was discussed and promised by us to you before, and make sure that we're upholding that as we execute this first bit of work. Like I said, currently work is proceeding on schedule and as planned. We actually got a schedule from the trade contractor to validate what we had said before. That's on track. And like I said, the portable classrooms is something that we're tracking on a daily basis, because we know it's incredibly urgent. And you know, we had one little thing come up today, I think you know about, with some existing wiring in the portable, that it's not to be not necessarily a full surprise. It happens when you're uncovering things. So it's, you know, the communication, I think, between yourself and Eric, that we've got a really good mode of communication to be responsive and reactive to those things to keep the work going. So can I answer any questions?
So the portables, they're coming in the last week of August, so
So
what
one
are they?
portable.
One portable,
That
And-
contains 2 classrooms.
that, yeah, that can, and just curious, what's the plan B?
So really, the one classroom would be a classroom, it's a grade 4, and the other side is a special education. So what we would have to do, it would really be one class of kids. We're gonna have to have a plan B, absolutely. Are we
Yeah.
gonna have them in the library for a week? Are we gonna, hopefully I don't have to go there, but that would be
That's kind
the
of
worst
the
case
plus, right?
scenario.
Okay, yeah,
Would be having them in an art room or a library for
Okay.
a week.
okay. And I'm just curious in terms of like the communication to parents and the community, like, do we think that maybe, maybe not weekly, maybe at least bi-weekly, just sending out, even if it's a paragraph, just like some sort of updates, because like I've heard people say, oh, I drive by and nothing's happening. Well, I'm sure things are happening inside, they might just not see the vehicles, but I do think it's very important. This is kind of probably the most
It's a
important thing
great
going on
suggestion.
right now.
And we haven't had a lot to report yet, but we're starting to now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yes.
maybe even like no news is good news,
The portables are being
sort of
heard
thing.
and
Yeah,
work is going. So yeah, we're gonna be able to, and I talked to Ken today about having, instead of having the memorial school site on the website, it'll be construction related site. So anytime there's an update or any kind of words of encouragement or pictures or something, go right there.
yeah,
So we are working on that. So appreciate that input.
okay.
Yeah, and we have people stationed here every day, so we can certainly work on something that's manageable and not overwhelming as far as the updates that are happening, because there's certain people involved with the project that are getting updated to some extent almost every single day, especially with the amount of work that has to happen in the condensed period of the summer.
Yeah,
So we can find the best way to distill that so that we're not inundating people or encumbering people with it. So we can open to a discussion about that.
And I think the building committee wanted to add a couple meetings in July and August too, because I think there's only really usually one, because the only one scheduled is.
Right now, it's the only one is August.
Because
right?
that's the normal regular building committee. so-
I think that would be beneficial.
So we have
Yep.
decisions that need to
Yep.
be made. Right. Thank you, Dave. You have some other questions? Thank you.
For anything else? Or? Okay. Have a good evening.
Enjoy the peak.
I just had a question before we move off the superintendent's report. I know you mentioned the YMCA was like kind of working on like a, calendar coverage sort of plan. Historically, it's only been open to those that are enrolled in the YMCA. And I'm just curious if we've asked them, like, given kind of this short notice of the calendar changing, would they open it up to non-enrollees in the YMCA?
I'm happy to check on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
I have been told yes, but
Okay,
let's make sure we confirm that because I
Yeah.
wasn't involved in the initial conversations, so.
Any other questions for Dr. Leggett? Hold on. Research chairman update. The only thing Bob and I really have is that we've been working really hard on finishing up the newsletter to go out next week. It's kind of tough to get everything down to 8 pages, but I think Bob condensed most of it down to the 8 pages. We're going to send it to Sydney to go through it with admin and make sure everything's accurate. But we managed to get the whole school year in there, I think. A lot of updates, but as soon as it goes through, Dr. Leggett, I'll send it off to the board, take a look at just any questions or changes or things we might have missed, let us know. We have a short window, so maybe like 48 hours before we want to try to send it out by Monday.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can change things quickly. It's all in a program, so we can just pull things out and move them. If we missed anything, so.
This is the one that will get sent to all residents.
So we'll get a digital copy out and we'll get a copy out to all towns and then see if we can get copies to the libraries, similar to what we did for the next steps flyer. And then that will be the start of the quarterly updates. We'll start doing them quarterly from there. That's all I have. Kim.
I have a very brief report. We closed out our fiscal year, June 30th. We are 99.34% expended in our budget, and we have received the 99% of our revenue. next month in the August meeting, I will be providing 2 reports. One would be a period 13 report because we do have to carry over some encumbrances such as electricity, things that you get after in the next month, and proper accounting is to record it in the period in which it's incurred. So we've got to do that. So you will see a period 13 report, but then you'll also see the report for July, month of July. And I'll have we've closed out purchase orders, but I'll have a more definitive number of where we stood at the end of the year. But right now, we just made it. That's it.
Can I understand the auditors are coming in 2 weeks?
They are, they always do that.
A little bit early?
They come a little bit in July and then they come again, say October. So this is not, yeah, I don't know.
We're getting it done.
Yeah, we do. We like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, get a lot of work done early.
Never fears the auditors.
No, I don't feel me.
Okay, district climate update, Jen.
Do you have a presentation on? Yeah, okay. You want me to go?
You know, with vacations on the end of the year, we appreciate you, Jen. I noticed a lot of data to come together and put together, so appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. So these are the results of our climate survey from our students, parents, and staff. Just press the arrow.
Yep.
Okay, great. So we had 1,145 student participants, and that 194 families participated, and
Voice over on.
117.
Voice over on, 6:29 PM.
Sorry.
Okay, 117 staff members. All right, and so for the data summary, we reviewed all indicators and cited the questions where there were more. I need to remove this. There's something in my. Okay, where there was more than 15-point change from 2023 to 2025. We also reviewed any negative indicators with more than 20% agreement or disagreement to determine trends. Of note, there was a lot of feedback on the neutral responses from the 2023 survey, so they were removed. And with grade reconfiguration and building reconfiguration, there isn't it's not, some indicators aren't exact. There is no direct comparable data to the previous years, but we did the best we could. So some positive takebacks from the parent survey. Teachers and staff and administration seek to solve problems and issues on behalf of students rather than blaming students. So you'll see that 61.6% was from the 2023 data, and the survey from 2025 indicates that there is 77.8% of parents in agreement with that statement. My child's school has effectively addressed my child's negative experiences or concerns. My child is assigned high-quality homework that helps them learn. Teachers and staff appreciate all people. Teachers and staff treat all students with respect, regardless of race, gender identity, socioeconomic status, and school administrators maintain a positive rapport with all staff. Some positive district staff results. I feel physically safe in my school. Teachers, staff, and administration seek to define problems or issues rather than blame others. Parents and students are informed regularly about student academic progress. My school encourages students to be involved in extracurricular activities. My school encourages all families to be engaged. And school events are well attended by staff, which was another large increase. Areas for growth. In the parent survey, bullying and mean behaviors are issues at my child's school. My child has witnessed or experienced racism in school, and some growth areas from district staff. Bullying and mean behaviors are issues in my school, and students treat others with respect regardless of race, gender identity, socioeconomic status. So those are definitely areas of continued growth for us. Student survey, positive areas, elementary, grade K through 2. The adults in the school care about me. We've got 100% agreement with that, which is lovely. I feel safe in my classroom, 99% in agreement. This is how much I like the children in this school. That grew significantly, as well as the children in this school like me. 3 through 5, positive areas. It doesn't matter who you are. All students are treated with respect and kindness, and there's always someone to help me if I have a problem. And finally, my school is welcoming to all people. For strong, positive areas, we have, I feel safe in my school. The rules in my school are fair and help encourage a positive student conduct. I feel connected and trust at least one adult in my school. I know who to go to get help for issues or concerns I have. And we're at almost 90% in agreement with that, which is a significant increase from our last survey. I'm regularly informed about my progress in school. Teachers and staff support and appreciate all people. Teachers and staff treat all students with respect, regardless of race, gender identity, socioeconomic status, and my school encourages all families to be engaged in our school activities. Cog and jog, the rules in my school are fair and help encourage positive student conduct. I feel connected and trust at least one adult in my school. I know who to go to get help for issues or concerns that I have. My administration communicates in an open and respectful manner, including expectations and procedures. I feel safe in my school, and my school is generally clean. Some areas for growth. We're looking at elementary, and another child says something mean to me. We have 15% of students say a lot, or 42% of students say sometimes. So we certainly need to look at that. Students are picked on, called names, and teased by other students, and that's a 30.8% agreed with that. Other people or I have experienced racism in my school. And in the secondary grades, similar. Students are picked on, called names, and teased by other students. Students treat each other with respect regardless of race, gender, or gender identity. We had 50% of our students disagree with that statement. And I am aware of racism in my school. Students treat teachers and staff with respect. And we have 43.9% of our students disagree with that statement. So our recommendations and action plan include or continue to support students' mental health and well-being first. Put students first, as Dr. Leggett said. We're looking to update our building district climate committees with the use of the new school climate improvement plan template that came out from the Department of Education. Adopt protocols and procedures for implementing best practice guidelines for school climate, reporting techniques, and investigations. Comprehensive training for staff on the updated bullying, harassment, and Title IX policies. Restorative practices training and implementation with an implementation plan. And complete the rollout of our Sandy Hook Promise Say Something anonymous reporting system for staff and students. And so that's for secondary, that's for strong and cog and jog. There's an elementary version of that. And we're going to increase, strengthen, and monitor our tiered levels for SEL and intervention. Any questions?
Is the participation lower or higher from 23 to 25?
Well, for our students, it's similar.
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
do it in
Curious about
classes.
parents and
For
staff.
families or staff, you know what, I have to look at that. I'm sorry, I can find that.
Because I think I
On my
looked
computer.
down from that first slide, real quick, was there 117 staff
We only, yes, 117 staff at a,
responded?
Respond.
Out of how many?
how many staff
many
we have
FTEs?
total? We have a lot more staff than 117. That's low. And that was one of, Dr. Charles's, comments too, was that, there was low staff, reporting. And families, it was 194, and I don't think that's lower than usual. I think that's probably fairly typical, but I can check. Well,
I would think to myself, like, the parent response rate is about, argument's sake, what, like 15% of the students that responded,
mhm.
and Kim, how many FTEs do we have in district? Like,
For all staff?
yeah, the whole
Three,
staff,
yeah, middle 300s.
yeah, and 117 respond. I mean, it's, not even close to like half. So I think that I'm curious to know how many staff responded in 2023.
I'll find that out.
Versus
I can do that
25,
right
and
now.
see if the participation decreased.
I can look at that right now for you, how to do this piece well.
Jen, did you discuss with anybody how come there was such an increase between 23 and 25 on the positive stuff?
Part of it is because we took away the,
Neutral.
the neutral
you.
response.
Yeah.
And so it forced people, and I think, I don't know, I say
So
this every year, right? The state is supposed to come out with their,
So-
survey.
So a lot of that 20 points is really lack of a neutral.
It's a lack of a neutral, but we have got several respondents saying, I wish there was a, this doesn't apply, or something in between, agree and disagree. To find more of a 5-point scale if indeed we're making our own again for next time. And again, these are all the same questions that the state had put out in 2012. But we did take the neutral out. We had lots of conversation about that. And I think that's why you see some significant changes, because it forced people to say yes or no.
Do you think we'd have a higher response rate if we go to a truly anonymous survey participation? Because I know a lot of people feel uneasy, you still get IP addresses and, just to make staff feel more.
This is truly anonymous, because I don't think we do get IP addresses or anything, but people don't think it is. And so that's,
Just from my own personal experiences with these sorts of surveys, I mean, I get inundated with them. Sometimes it's October, then all of a sudden it's always May, over and over and over again. I do wonder if we should provide time for staff, not required to do it, but maybe during a professional learning day, just, hey, you got time to do it? It's a burden. When you're just as a teacher, every single day, you're doing things, oh, I have to do 3 surveys now, not have to, but encouraged to do so. And it's difficult to find the time sometimes to do that and not shortchange your students.
you won't get doing it at staff meetings, but we don't want them to feel like people are looking over their shoulders, or they have to use their, district issued computers and things like that, but certainly a good idea to.
But they're short and sweet
Check-in.
too. It's not like a 200 question thing, so that's.
Some different check-ins, yeah.
Oh.
How do you plan to address the bullying and racism issues? I mean, those are the hardest ones we have. They obviously affect most of the negative stuff we have. So, I mean, it's really the hardest challenge. It's not.
And, Dr. Leggett said, we are looking at really rolling out the restorative practices. And within that, monitoring our SEL tiered levels. So at all levels, so in the classroom, in the building, looking at what is working for each building and increasing those components, and looking at things that we need to add via our restorative practices model. And again, I think when we're looking at number 2 up there, the building district, building climate committees, utilizing the school climate improvement plan template that the state put out this year, will help with that too. It'll help us get more measurable outcome, interventions, and align our future interventions towards that.
We had it strong for a while. We had a group meeting of students who dealt with the issues of bullying and race. Is that still alive? or
So that's
is it
one of,
something You can talk to Dave about.
that's one of my district thoughts as we roll out our new district climate for school year 25-26 is I'm looking for much more participation from community, parents, and students, particularly when we're looking at interventions and in some leadership opportunities for all of our stakeholders.
Well, I attended some of those meetings and I found that the students were easily to talk about these issues. They would, especially the middle school students. It was easy for them to raise the issues and talk about them. And I thought, that's something that probably should continue or could continue. And I think that, it wouldn't hurt to have it at the high school as well, because the issues get different, but the middle school is really a place to start.
I agree. And some of the work that we had did with Kendrick Moore in the spring set us up for student leadership roles and participation. And those students who weren't seniors were committed to coming back, to school to continue that work. But yes, student voices.
Yeah, I think they listen more than they listen to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if I remember from the district climate meeting, the participation at Memorial was low, like there was a jump between the SPED survey and filling that out too, so that could indicate some changes as to why.
The SPED survey was before.
Yeah.
Yes.
They
And
thought
so-
people could-
So after our meeting, Dr. Charles asked us to send reminders and it was increased. There was increased participation, but even with the increased participation, those aren't final numbers.
No, especially looking from 23 to 25 and seeing the difference in changes, it does give a big perspective as to the increase there. So, the work is happening and it's important.
I don't know, I think the participation is lower. I think the results can be a bit skewed, I think, though, and. I
No,
don't know.
I agree with you, Suze, when you had said it, I didn't mean the lower participation, I just meant the change, but showing 23 to 25 and seeing those changes, so there is progress there. Any other questions on climate?
Did your staff talk to, we talked about this with the other staff,
Building.
What's their
principals,
response?
The building principals brought it to their staff and within their staff meetings. And so they looked at the data and talked about collating the data, what it means, and came up with their own individual building action plans as well. And thoughts brainstorm.
So you ready for it, Deb and David?
On this day 5, yes, I'm just gonna follow his lead, no. No, we are, and we did look at it with the staff and the school climate committees. Sometimes the loudest voices are the ones that want to complain, so Christine, to your point, it just depends, Data can say anything. We have a good start. Katie Trainer did an excellent job with the Kendrick Moore stuff in the spring, at both schools. She headed that both up, and I think, we're gonna start with him, but he has set those kids up to be leaders. And we're going to continue with that because, to your point, they will listen to each other more readily than they will listen to us. But with the restorative practices training we currently have, it hopefully will change everyone's affect going forward to create relationships and better communicate across the board. So that is part of our strategy going forward. So I'll answer for him and say this. I got him.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
On athletic survey update. coming this month? We know we switched you around a little bit.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to come this month as opposed to last month. Last month conflicted with a rain out in my son's semifinal game, so
Did they win?
they did not, but it still, it doesn't change the fact when your son or your daughter looks at you, it looks for you in the stands and you're able to be there. So
We're
I
glad you
certainly
could go.
have one that I'm not always there. So thank you very much for a couple minutes of your time. What we're going to be presenting tonight is kind of a couple of things in here. We're going to present some of the student athlete health and safety kind of injury data that we've collected over the last 4 years, as well as give some highlights for a subsequent athletic climate survey presentation that we did following the difficulty. So I kind of wanted to go over some of the information here. There we go. So before we get into the data part of the collection report, I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of information prior to what you're going to be seeing over the data that we've collected. With your support, kind of hiring an athletic trainer full-time, as far as rather than a subcontract, it allows him or her, in this case, Ethan, to kind of delve into some more issues and delve into some more preventative actions. And that's something that we've been working with this year and we'll continue to move forward. And so when we were tasked to kind of put this 4-year data together, we thought it was a really good opportunity to kind of look at what has been going on for 4 years and are we on the right track? Are we not? What glaring things are there? So to kind of designate a little bit the injury reporting. So the numbers that you'll see fall under what's called standing orders. So Ethan and all athletic trainers typically have standing orders that they are governed by an orthopedic surgeon in most cases, in most districts. And it's not everyone that walks into a training room or walks in and tweaks their ankle at practice. If that individual gets back to practice within 3 days, they typically would follow something on the right side that doesn't get an injury report in most cases, something called a SOAP note or kind of a daily treatment log. The injury report is more for someone that's out of participation for about 7 days or is not improving. Now, there's always exceptions to that. If you decide to go to the doctor after 2 days, that individual is going to get an injury report. Or if you refer to the emergency room, that individual is going to get an injury report. So I wanted to frame that as we kind of look forward to some of the data of kind of what that means. So we collected and kind of went over and did following what our HIPAA guidelines are for similar to kind of FERPA in the medical world, but kind of keeping that identifiable students. So what I put on the top here was all of this information. This is the total number of athletes over the course of the last 4 years in the fall that are fall student athletes. And the total number of athletic injuries are those that required an athletic report. So that doesn't designate the number of injured students. It just means what constituted an athletic injury report. So unfortunately, an individual may be under there 3 times. If they started off the school year with a shoulder injury that kept them out for a week and then maybe progressed to a knee injury at the end of the season, they might be counting as 2. But we felt that's important because it allows us to kind of look at the course of the 4 years that the numbers are what the trend is. Certainly the total number of student athletes is relatively simple or similar. And we also saw the same thing in the total number of athletic injuries. With what you'll see glaring in the fall of 23 or last school year, you'll see a drop in some of that. And we'll kind of go over the reason why. If you looked at just the number of sports that we have in the fall, you'll see that there's a collection of how they go over the course of the 4 years. And some of the things that we expected to see higher injury rates in soccer, boys and girls, and in football. And we'll kind of go over at the end why we kind of expected to see that. We also then broke it down for our purposes, really not only by sport, but in this case, by what the actual injury was. And again, we kind of went through and what this was helpful is we were able to kind of look across the last 4 years and say, well, is there anything that's improving? Is there anything that's declining? Or is it kind of more up and down, or more sporadic? Again, that'll make some sense as we get to the end of the presentation. We also did that by winter. As you can see, I highlighted it a little bit differently here because in the winter we have far more cooperative teams that some of our student athletes will go to compete with, such as in the sport of ice hockey on the boys' side or the girls' side, or gymnastics in the past we've had, as well as swimming and diving. So that's why I kind of separated them out. But again, I still use that as a comparison to what the total number of injuries are, because those student athletes are still our student athletes and would fill out our injury reports. So again, we tracked it as we would by sport. And some of the things that we expected, I believe, to see was in basketball, which is a contact sport. We saw a greater number of injuries, as well as in indoor track, both in the boys and the girls side. And we did the same thing here for the different types of injuries. We tried to keep consistently. It gave us, Ethan and I, an opportunity to kind of look at those things and kind of go over them. We also did the same thing with spring. And again, I highlight the top. Here's the total number of athletic injuries. I think there's a trend that you're seeing is in last school year, we see a much lower rate of athletic injuries for particular reasons. When you look in the spring, you'll see outdoor track seems to have a lot of injuries, and then the rest kind of go from there. And we feel that there's good reasons for that. But one of the things that you do notice is that you don't have any contact sports in the spring. This contact sports in the state of Connecticut are sports that we don't support. Girls lacrosse would be one of them, but girls lacrosse is a non-contact sport compared to the boys lacrosse, which we don't have, is a contact sport. And then I think what we want to do is kind of just share this for-year conservative. What did we see from all of this? There's a lot of data. This is data that, Ethan certainly tracks throughout the year as far as on a day-to-day basis or month-to-month basis. In this case, when we put it all together, it was something that we had an opportunity to kind of look at for an extended period of time. So how do we kind of report that in a very brief overview to a group of individuals was, first, we kind of looked at what were the observable trends. And it may sound strange, but there were no observable trends. And that's actually something that we wanted to see. We didn't want to see something that we saw things rising. That's something that means, hey, we need to look at something. What is going on? What's not? We saw a lot of ups and downs. We saw a lot of randomness, if you would. And I think that kind of goes along with the nature of the sport in that, many of these sports, whether they're non-contact or contact, they still have, there's a reason why there's cautionary statements. There still is a risk for injury. And our job is to try to put things in place that can minimize as best they can. But there is no way that we can remove all injuries. It just isn't possible to do. We also looked at, over the last 4 years, what did we see? Any trends? Was there anything that stuck out? And we certainly saw last year as kind of a year that was underreporting. And the reason for that is that we didn't have an athletic trainer. In August, Ethan, who was an outside contractor company, their contractor pulled their athletic trainer card. So we went through the entire school year last year without an athletic trainer. We had game coverage, spot coverage. We were able to do almost 100% of our games, our varsity level games, covered by an athletic trainer. But as we're going to see throughout the year, and as we're going to see, it's so important to have student athletes need a connection to adults. Students need connections to adults. And having someone here that they trusted, they understand, they learn to know who he is, they're more apt to going to them, as well as parents are apt to going with them, as opposed to a stranger who's sitting in the back that, yes, in an emergency situation, you need to have an athletic trainer there. But for the aches and pains or for the injury that might get worse, but I'm just going to kind of suck it up, they're not going to go to an individual. They're not trusting of that individual. And so we found that with having Ethan here those 3 years that we see the numbers on a higher rate. We believe that's one of the reasons why they are higher. Students are more apt to go to him. And then as we would expected, we did see injuries higher in contact sports as opposed to non-contact. Football, basketball, soccer. I asterisked soccer because ironically in the state of Connecticut, soccer is not listed as a contact sport. But for any of us that have played or have children in it, it's very hard for, I think, many of us to say that soccer is not a contact sport. But in Connecticut, it's not listed as one. And so we felt confident with some of what these trends kind of were going through and seeing. I'll pause for a second. Is there any questions at this point? There's a lot of data that we just presented. Before I kind of move on to some of the things that we do preventative wise, is there anything that there were any questions at this point?
What's the hardest injury that you had, Ethan?
So far, I've seen dislocated elbows. I've had to call 911 multiple times. We had a individual go through a heat issue at our first football game last year, which was fun. And we actually canceled our football game last year, which is rather uncalled for at halftime in the middle of the game. So that was a fun day. My last day here, my first day here at Coggins, and it was a tough day. So.
It's interesting. I mean, it was a hectic the way that we done it, but I think how we did it, and we weren't the only school in the state that canceled it halfway through, but the majority don't, and they just kind of push through it. And I think that's important, that sometimes those hard decisions are ones that are required to be made. The health and safety of student athletes, you know.
Good thing.
So I'm gonna kind of move on to what are some of the things that we have in place, and I'll just highlight a couple of them. But I think one of the more important ones we met with the fire marshals is our emergency action plans, which are venue specific. It's something that Ethan and I have worked really hard on, kind of going through and making them there. One of the things that we're going to be move forward with, or trying this year, is something in mock scenarios. We have preseason meetings with all of our coaches, and one of the things we're going to look at doing is kind of creating mock scenarios to kind of let them choose their own path, choose their own adventure, and give them a little bit more real world, instead of just sitting in a classroom and presenting everything to them, which we will, but getting them to kind of get up and do those things and practice them in hand. We also do a lot with our heat monitoring and practice modifications, something that I'm very proud of. I know not all of our coaching staff, I think I'd like to believe they appreciate all the efforts that Ethan and I do, or all the text messages that Ethan sends them on a regular basis. But it really is our job with the summer practice schedules there and the open-endedness that CIAC has kind of given us. Neither one of us felt really comfortable just allowing anything to happen. And so we clearly are more on the conservative side, but we feel it's the best way to keep our student athletes healthy and safe. And so we've kind of taken this globe thermometer, which really is, it's a measure of heat index. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that in the news. And really what that is just kind of it's kind of a mathematical formula of heat, temperature, and humidity. And then what are the safe levels of participation? During the school year, it's something that Ethan will monitor and modify as the day goes on. In the summer, it's something that we tried to simplify and really give them kind of a stop, a go, caution, and stop, and really simplified it to just 3 kind of colors. And so coaches that are practicing during certain times are issued these thermometers that they have to record and send the data, and then we kind of give them what their guidelines are. And that's also with Ethan kind of giving them updates and weather updates about, hey, we need to move inside. Hey, we have a lot of thunderstorms coming. This is where we should be going. So trying to give our coaches the best possible information so that they can go through the health and safety of our kids. And then the last one I'll highlight is something that I know this group supported, and I greatly appreciate it. We looked at last year, what were some things that we felt could increase our injury prevention and catastrophic prevention. Really it's providing additional AED machines. And so we have in the process of ordering 3 new AED machines that are external as opposed to internal. So there's some lock boxes and some connections to 911, and they'll be housed at the new stadium, as well as the baseball facility, as well as our softball facility. So we really feel between those things, we have a lot of things covered.
Lucy has a question. You can unmute, Lucy.
Okay, I will try. I know everyone asked, can you hear me? I was trying to ask a question on your first presentation. As far as the injuries that you listed, do you also have them listed by sports, by specific sports? For how many? Meaning how many, like for instance, you have concussion. How many were attributed to which sports?
We do not have that listed, and that's a good question. Lucy, Ethan and I have that information. But we don't list that and present that because it's a HIPAA violation. You know, one of the things that we have to do is have, you know,
Okay.
identifiable information, not identifiable. So we felt this was the best way to kind of put that together to give an overview, without kind of, you know, going against what those guidelines would be.
Okay, I understand. I also have another question. Do we have a copy of this? Because I'm not there at the meeting. Is there one available
I can get one to you. Lucy.
online? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I then wanted to kind of just, you know, highlight, I listed a few things here. In the previous slide were a lot of things that we do as a department, and we do with our athletic training staff. But some of the things that we do with our coaches or what our coaches have, as you can see, our coaches have a plethora of stuff that they have to kind of do. Not only do they do all the district trainings that all of our staff members do, but we also provide continuing education things that they're required to do in their 5-year permits. Everything from going over preseason annual reviews, which go over things like heat and cardiac issues and concussion issues. And one of the newer ones would be mental health. So it's something that the CIC has not put into place, coaches training for mental health, but it's something that they've put more of an awareness piece out there for students, student athletes and parents. And it's also something in some of our trainings that we've had with the NFHS. Yesterday, one of the presenters came in, that was one of the main topics of concern for student athletes globally in the country, was more mental health kind of trainings. So it's certainly something that we're going to be looking at. And I know the state's also going to be looking at, you know, how do we better provide some of these things. We did a recent CEU a couple of years ago on mental health, where I brought in our school psychologist to kind of assist with that. And it's something that we'll continue to look at kind of in the future.
What's the training schedule for all the coaches?
The training schedule?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding, so like as far as how would a year kind of go?
Yeah. I mean, if you're a basketball coach, how much do you have to get 6 hours of training, or are you just certified that you had the training? What?
So it depends on what annually. So in order for a 5-year permit, the state requires you to have 15 continuing, you know, hours of continuing education over the course of that 5 years. We provide 1 3-hour training every year towards the end of the year as a staff meeting. But as a district, the district trainings, for example, will go out in the beginning of the school year. I actually asked Mr. Bro last year, which his department did. We were able to send our coaches a little bit earlier so that they can get a jump on that instead of, you know, at the beginning of September where we're starting school, they're already starting the first game. So we tried to give coaches that training ahead of time. And then our preseason meetings are done prior to. We kind of go over in the beginning on that. And then there's just things throughout. There's CIC puts in sports specific training that they're required to do. So a lot of this stuff is done prior to their season, as well as just ongoing with us. And then I just kind of, you know, listed here, we've kind of gone over and I think further, but these are some of the things in protocols and procedures. Like, for example, in concussions, you know, the idea is that someone gets concussion, kind of comes back, you know, when they feel better and they just get back into things. And that's just not the case. So many protocols that we have in their safety, they're symptom-free for a specific number of days. Then they may go to the doctor. Then when they come back, they have to work with Ethan or another athletic trainer on a 6-day to return to play protocol. And only when they pass each day is that something that they're permitted to return back to sport. So we really do, you know, have these things in place to kind of allow the student athletes to kind of go in a concerned thing. And then lastly, I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the climate survey results that we have. It certainly won't be as detailed as Mrs. Keene did. But when the climate sent out the district survey in February of last year, afterwards, it was kind of asked, you know, hey, do we have something specific for athletics? And so working with Dr. Charles, we put together something that was similar to what the district put out, but then it had a little bit twist of athletic part. There were certain things that we had to modify and change, but some of the things is actually the same. And it's kind of interesting to see some of the results that you received and some of the results that we received as far as, are they in line? Are they not? And sometimes it's good to see. We've seen positive things, but we've seen negative things, and that makes me cringe. But it's good sometimes to see it's not just me. It's all of us are kind of in that same boat sometimes. So I kind of just highlighted some of the surveys. Christine, something that you asked about percentages wise, we sent out surveys to student athletes, to parents of students, and to coaching staff. For our student athlete population, we got the best response, and our coaching staff, both of those were just under 50%. And our parents was kind of similar to what you had originally said. They were just shy of 15%. And there's probably many reasons for that. Some of the things that you had said, James, about timing wise, so we're going to look, how do we spread this out and send it out where it's a little bit more appropriate for kind of parents to do that. But some of the highlights that we felt, in my clicker, there was more than 94% of student athletes felt safe and welcoming at their sports environment. We feel that's important. That's one of our main guidance things. Do they feel comfortable kind of going here? Some of those answers as far as, do they feel physically safe was up over 99% in that. And we also wanted to see that, our coaching staff, creates a positive team culture and inclusive to all team members. We were getting scores of, of over 94% in creating positive and respectful environments. Student athletes felt connected and trusted in one of the coaches at school. And that's something that we're going to be building on this year, as far as looking to, as we look for some of this restorative practices, but really having some more one-on-one connections with coaches that are not just in a sports arena, but maybe outside or in the locker room, those types of things. And parents generally felt that their child sports team was welcoming. Some of the things on apartment wise, we feel that we offer a good variety to our student athletes, and we provided both positive atmosphere and a positive student athlete conduct. But that's not to say that we don't have things that we felt we can do better on. Experiencing racism on a sports team, or teammates that picked on or called names or teased by other teammates was almost an identical question to the district. We need to improve on that. In 2025, we should not be having any percentage as far as racism on my sports team. And then I also focused on the communication piece. While I think 88% is pretty good, I hope that all of you get my many updates that I send throughout the things, but we're going to look to change some of the feedback in my staff. We're going to look to change how we send it out, and maybe that might get a little bit more buy-in to some of that. Next steps, action steps though, I discussed a little bit on our communication. I think by switching those out, we're hoping to kind of improve on that. But we're also really going to focus so much about our negative student athlete behavior, which, Bob, is a question that you certainly asked Jen Keene earlier. We'll have on there some education resources and websites with the rollout of the new Safe School Climate. That how do they report? And we'll have a little bit of feedback and training on how they do that. Student athlete leadership. Just under 80%, 78% of our students, our student body is in the athletic population. And so how do we tap into that? And how do we restructure some of the leadership meetings that we've had combined to some of our captains meeting that we've had? Mrs. Key mentioned Kendrick Moore, and really with Katie Trainer kind of steering that. Well, one of the things we saw in my talk to Kendrick at the end of the year is that that population was the same. My student leadership was the same as the student leadership that Ms. Stone was seeing. And so how do we kind of remove them from one and kind of incorporate them, or how do we add those things is something that we're looking at on how to do, and then how to restructure our captain's focus with the work that they're doing, that Ms. Stone's doing with her staff right now on advisory committees, and how do we use that more effectively as far as my athletic piece, and what do we need to do differently in some of that. So that's something that we're looking at. And then finally, just kind of long-term, just something is that Dr. Leggett and I were talking as we were going over some of this stuff, and something that she mentioned you know, as the high school is looking at portrait of a graduate and what that might be, you know, there was something that Dr. Leggett had brought up to me. There's something about a portrait of a student athlete that she has some familiar, and that was intriguing. You know, really, what does it mean to be a CRH student athlete? So it's something that long term, that's that LT there, is that we're looking to do and kind of move forward from there. So. And then finally, thank you for your time and support. And as you know, my signups are always Go Blue Devils. So any questions on some of the second part of the presentation?
And the summer practices, I know they used to be without coaches. Are the coaches at the summer practices now under CIAC?
Yes, so a big change.
Is Ethan there too?
Yes and no. So no, but that's a good question, Bob. So one of the shifts, there used to be a season's limitation in the summer, and
Right.
coaches at there is a specific date in every season that coaches can begin training and coaching their kids. And there's a specific date that they have to stop by. After that period, they're not permitted to train. They can always train condition-wise, but they can't actually train sport-specific stuff. Last year, CIC opened that up, and they opened it for all sports. So the challenge that we have in a small school is that if you're permitting all sports to do that, that means very possibly we might have one of our, I'll use a male here, we might have a boys soccer player who's practicing twice a week and then playing in a summer game. And also that individual is also practicing twice a week on the basketball team and playing in a summer basketball league. And also
I'm familiar with those.
might be playing in a baseball. So we're actually, as we were discussing this last week, we might actually have student athletes that are doing more in the summer, which is very concerning to us. So there's some things that Ethan's looking at and kind of cross-referencing some of that to see, you know, what needs to be sent out proactively to parents. You know, hey, your son or daughter, you're receiving this notification because your son or daughter participates in more than one summer sport. Please make sure they're properly hydrating, they're properly getting rest. So that opening up has been very much a challenge, in my opinion, in a small school, because those same student athletes are participating in multiple sports. You know, as far as, is Ethan there? In the sport year,
Yeah.
everything starts after 2 o'clock. But in the summer, everything starts as early as 7 o'clock and maybe go as late as 8 o'clock at night. So really, it's a lot about communication. It's a lot about training of those coaches. If you're doing it at this time, these are the things you're going to be expecting. So it's trying to have him there as much as possible, but also provide as much to the coaches as we can so they can make sure they do things safely. But it's a good question, Bob.
I also noticed from November and now, so there's a number of injuries in practice.
Mhm.
How do we deal with that?
The number of injuries in practice?
Yeah. Well, I had a grandson that injured himself in practice. I you know, how do we avoid those things?
Well, I wish I could say there was a way to avoid them. But, you know, when you look at, there's multiple schools of thought on why an injury might occur in practice. So first of all, if you look at the calendar, just looking at the fall calendar, you might have 60 dates that you are participating in practice for the fall season. In most sports, that is excluding the football because they go a little bit later into the month. So of the 60 dates, you might have 30% of them are games and 70% of them are practices. So some of the answers why you have more injuries in practice is because you simply have more than 2-to-1 practices to games. And so that can be one reason. The other reason could be why you might have injuries in athletic events or games is because you're going exertion, you're going full, you're going 100% as much as you can.
And do we have Ethan at the practices?
Ethan, during the school year, yes.
I know those things.
Yeah.
Yes, during the school year, Ethan is at most of the practices. There's a designation of in his organization as far as what is the priority to be at. So contact sports are a higher priority, and so he stations himself there. But he also then checks in with all of other sport things.
It's a lot of miles on that golf cart.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of miles on.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is kids are more willing to come up to me during practices for
You could
good
tell.
or bad reasons, whatever you want to make of that. During a game, they'll have conversations with me, but it'll be a little bit different. During practices, they're much more willing to come up and have that conversation with me of, hey, this just happened. Hey, this just happened. Hey, this has been bugging me for a week. And then that's why you might see that some of that stuff as well.
Well, I certainly noticed that the athletes are really responsive to you and
Yeah.
enjoy having you around.
I appreciate that.
And, and I think the parents should be very happy that
Yeah.
you're there because
Well, I hope so. I really
Right.
like this community and this district, so I really appreciate it.
Todd, I think one of the questions that I think you might be getting towards, Bob, is, I think the ratio, like where you're in practice, just so much more time than games makes sense in terms of the increased injuries. But I think one of the questions might be, does anything need to change in practices to try and decrease the number of those injuries? Like, do any practices need to change?
We haven't seen anything in the data that suggests that it does have to. There isn't anything in a particular sport that says there's a higher number of rates in any one thing. But when there has been in the past, I do think of one sport in particular that in recent years, they had seen multiple or successive concussions. And so what Ethan then did is work with the coaches on what are some things that you could train differently, or how could you be more preventive in that? And, since then we saw a drop in that. So trying to stay within that, unidentifiable, it's something that Ethan knows that particular thing. And then we talk all the time. And so whether it's him coming up, hey, we're seeing a lot of these, what do you think? And my background being athletic training, I think it's really, it's a luxury to have him here. But for us to be able to communicate on a regular basis, sometimes weekly, sometimes daily, on things that are going on and to try to be preventative. So we do talk all the times.
I also think you need to have some protection during the flag football game. There's girls who had concussions last
Yeah,
year.
I believe we did this year. Up until this year, I was a
Yeah.
contractor, so it was a little bit different, a little bit outside of my realm, but now this year I was there for it the
Yeah.
whole time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we moved to actual referees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yes,
good.
yes.
Right. Okay,
I mean, it
good
was-
idea. The broken noses and concussions.
Yeah, well, I was in concussion during it.
I hope I answered your question, Dr. Leggett. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Ethan.
Non-board communications, professional development, the only thing I had to report, August 7th, at Water's Edge from 1 to 7 is, the CABE Leadership Conference. If anyone wants to come, topics onboarding new board members, superintendent board relationships, board culture, and legislative advocacy. We're gonna have a bunch of the legislators there, so it might be an interesting thing to go to if anyone's available, so. I know you're gonna look at your schedule and see if you can do it too.
Let's see if I can be there.
Yeah, Bob, you have anything?
No.
I'm sorry, excuse my ignorance, Bob, but do we, under board communications, do we list any emails or anything that we've gotten from the public?
Sure.
Because I think
Yeah.
there, were emails from, sorry, I don't wanna misspeak, at least just in my short term of having an email. There was an email from Molly Clark to discuss her concerns regarding the board chair. And there was, another email from Amanda Betty, regarding similar concerns. That should be documented.
Yeah, I responded to Molly
Yeah.
Parks and I did not respond and I don't think it would, Lindsay didn't get that, so.
I didn't get either of them, so I could send them, if anyone has them, forward them to the full board, that'd be great.
So,
Can we also know the responses from the full board? Because I don't think we were included in the response.
I sent you a copy.
We were included in the actual response, or just you told us what you summarized what you
I
said?
summarized what I said, but that was exactly what I said.
Okay.
But I mean, it's hard to send out a notice that, without breaking our rules for.
Yeah.
So it's hard to respond to all when it was sent to all, and if I respond to all, it's now creating a meeting, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's why I
Made
just
sure.
sent you separately.
Yeah.
I
I wasn't
also-
sure if we still
so
list those.
I did see one of those, and I just wanted to exercise some caution in terms of one of them had a student's name in it, right? So nothing should be forwarded with student confidential information in it, as a reminder.
Anyone else? Lucy or Linda? Linda's on, I don't know if she, that's why she jumped on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. That really was legit a test to see if you could hear me because I'm using my headphones and I can never make those work. So, but I have nothing to say except, hey, everybody, how y'all doing? I'm here in the Poconos.
Well, continue to have fun. Okay, new business, review committee assignments. I did send that out to everyone. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I can just appoint people to vacancies we have. We currently, I know Christina, I sent it to you if you want to take a look at any committees that you want to serve on. We do have some members not serving on any committees, so if those members don't give me any ideas, I'll assign committees and then we can see if it works. Are there anyone on any current committees that want to change or add or see anything you're interested in?
I think I only got it after the meeting started and it's not
We all did.
connecting. So what's currently vacant? I mean, I would probably prefer to be on building because I have an extensive facility background. So I feel like that would be beneficial. And then obviously, you know, finance, audit, you know, related would be my other area of expertise.
Okay, we can check on those. I'm not sure how does the state makeup work for that building committee? Do you know, Ken? That's mandated by state.
Correct, but there is no limit on number of members.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can
Okay.
just attend.
So we can add to that.
Yeah, and I mean, board members can still vote on whatever.
You can go to
committee
whatever
member.
committee.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of us go to most of them anyway. So I won't assign any right now, and then we'll look at it and I'll send it out in the next couple days. Sure.
I'm wondering, is this the time to, so I don't necessarily want to be on the policy committee. I can do it, but I would really prefer those meetings start later.
So if you stay on it, we want to try to.
Yeah,
change-
even 5, but 4 is really hard.
I can start later.
Yeah, I don't think it's really been an issue. I mean, if it is an issue, we could go virtual with policy.
I think we were trying to get policy before building committee, so they were both in the same night, so we didn't have to go to 2 meetings, but I'm happy to have the policy at 6. You know, in the building at 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I said, it's just the
Yeah.
5 is really hard.
Yeah, I know.
Or 4. It was actually 4.
4, yeah. So I'd be happy to do it at 6.
Cool.
If building committee stays on the same schedule. But they may have to go at a different schedule because there's activities.
You want to move policy after building?
Yeah,
Okay. Do that.
because Jamie always has issue with time.
Yeah, Jamie always runs in a little
Four
bit
is
late.
tough, yeah.
Policy.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's always too close.
4 is always difficult, but
I think
Try
it's
my
always been 4 for student achievement because of staff, but policy shouldn't really matter if
We talked about 4 for student achievement today. But we'd like to keep it there if possible, at least for that committee.
we're changing policy committee to after. And that's opposite weeks of our meetings. So that should
Yeah,
be fine.
and since we're all done, we probably won't have that many significant meetings.
Okay.
We have 2 or 3 more issues to go over this year.
And I know the structure for the district climate committee is gonna change. Jen, where's Jen? Is that that district climate liaisons, when we figured out that last year, that's gonna change to like a whole different committee, right? So we don't really know.
Dr. Leonard will have to determine what that looks like.
So we'll just leave that one there for now. If anyone, I'm happy to drop off district climate. If anyone wants to join Lucy, it's just Lucy and I for now until that district climate committee forms.
I will trade you climate for policy.
Well, I'll still be a policy, so you can have it. I'll put you in there.
Whoop, whoop.
I think those have always been during the day. Right?
Oh, well, that could be problematic for me then.
But Linda, we'll
We can
discuss.
try to change it to an afternoon.
Okay.
Absolutely. Plus, I want looking at more student and community and parent contributions and participation, so we might have to look at having it after school stuff. But more to come on that. This is
Cool.
ad-libbing here, so I don't want to speak for that's what I do.
Lindsay, our policy allows community members to be on student achievement. And I think.
When we had district, when we had
Policy.
well-being, I think there
Yeah,
was a
and
student on there.
well-being, so,
But there's nothing that
think
precludes
that-
even one on policy or,
so I think that, it'd be good to put student achievement to, decide if we want, we can have up to 2 community members on those committees.
Mhm.
So it'd be good if somebody was interested to serve on student achievement. It would be good if we could add, we also had a student who wasn't a member, but also sat in on those committees, so it'll be great to have a student sit in as well.
we can add it to a section of the newsletter if you want, just calling for anyone that's interested.
Mhm.
Maybe that's where we'll get most people, and as people are interested, we can add them. I think that's
Yeah,
a good
they have
idea.
to be recommended and approved by the board.
Yeah. We have to look at, it'd be good to look at, student representatives for student achievement and policy.
Mhm.
There's nothing that precludes, student or even community members on policy, and they don't have to be voting members on policy, so we can look at that one too. Finance, actually, with Nick now being on the Middlefield elected member on the finance committee, I think that opens a community member on finance. So we just put Christine in that space. That works. Yeah.
No.
Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, because we're in the middle of coming into our room and there was in the elevator, did you say something about having students on the policy committee or other members on policy?
Yeah, I mean, we've never done it before, but there's nothing that precludes us from having non-voting members on policy, and it might give us some good insight from the community. and students.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I believe when we set that up, we wanted to just keep that with board members as opposed to any community or other members. Do
Yeah,
you
we have a
remember,
list in
Bob,
the policy, what committees there they could be on.
who's required? Yeah, you might want to just look into it.
Yeah.
Because my understanding was we talked about community members, but then we decided it was just going to be board members. But you could check it out.
Okay, we'll look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're good with that. I'll send that out with the ones I've updated from, and then if you have any changes or additions or swaps, we can do that as well. I don't see Steve on any of them, so I'm gonna send him an email and ask him if he wants to be on any of those committees. Okay, you're up policy?
Where's the director?
Yep. Oh,
Back to me.
just kidding. You missed a pivotal moment there.
So I sent the board a memo and linked in the agenda. And what I wanted to propose, not to read the entire memo again, but what I wanted to propose is the position for curriculum director, which I know is incredibly important to the district, and bringing that in is right now slated to be a November hire. So it would be just a partial this year. I would like to propose to the board that instead of hiring an individual this year, an employee, that what we do is we take the funds that were allocated towards that, work with the leadership team to prioritize what we really need to move forward right now and use contracted services this year for 2 main reasons. One is that we're going to have a better applicant pool if we advertise for this position in the spring, as opposed to looking for somebody who might not be willing to leave their job in November. So we're going to get a better pool of applicants in the spring. And then the second reason is that in the midst of doing this strategic planning, Dr. Siegel and I really want to delineate with the leadership team's help and input from the staff what those 2 positions are, how they're really going to have very specific roles, how that aligns to this strategic plan as we develop it. And when we have all of that, then we're really going to be able to hire the right person to do what we need. So I think I mean, I think I wouldn't say rushing to hire somebody in November because who knows, we might get somebody good. But I think that if we wait, we can use the funds very wisely this year to keep the momentum going and then get a more appropriate, more targeted, better hire in the spring.
For the contracted services, was there like a particular person or was it like a multitude, you know, kind of that you envision?
So it's going to depend, once we highlight what we really need to move forward, my imagination, my guess is that it's gonna be multiple, right? So what would, and that could be to a really big advantage to us, right? So if we need somebody to help us move parts of the strategic planning process forward, if we need somebody to work on climate and culture, you know, the restorative practices and how that integrates into the classroom, we can target those money to the people who are experts in that and bring them in to make sure that we're, you know, laying a really good foundation. So I think that there might be companies where you could do one contract, but they would still send you individual people.
I mean, this is just my opinion, you know, I have 3 kids in district, 1 outplaced. And I think that they've been suffering for too long. And I think our staff have too. And I think when we put the curriculum director in there, it was hugely welcome. Like people know, like they need it. And I'm afraid I don't think it sends the right message. I'm not saying your reasoning is wrong by any means. And I do agree with like the applicant pool, you know, you could get a better applicant pool in the spring, but I would love to see us try. And if we don't get anyone, then we don't get anyone, and then that's maybe like a plan B, but I just really feel like, you know, students and staff have really gone way too long without a true curriculum director to support them. And this is like what they need, and they were really excited, and I feel like it's gonna be a big letdown.
I think they would still have the same thing that they would have. It just wouldn't be like one specific person. In my opinion, the risk is better waiting, like using what we need this year and getting the better person in the long run. So it's more of like the long game plan.
I think for,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, thanks. I think another perspective on that is that having like a curriculum director in a district like ours has to be like the jack of all trades, right? They have to oversee the broad range of the curriculum. Having experts come in to pinpoint, and I was going to use the word triage, but I don't know if that's even it. It's being able to go in really deep into where we need some capacity building, because that's my I don't want to say issue, but my suggestion is that if we hire outside consultants, we make sure it's in the spirit of building the capacity for our teachers to eventually lead those movements. So I could be persuaded either way, but I do see that. Well, obviously I do. You know, truth be told, full transparency, I lead a team of consultants who would not be doing this, but I also see the value there of bringing in these people who spend 222 days a year talking about restorative practices, talking about curriculum, talking about writing curriculum, versus overseeing a generality. And yeah, I guess I'll stop there. So I think there's a number of different ways to look at it, and I don't know that one is a clear winner to the other.
And that's why I was going to agree with both of you. I have been a huge advocate of the curriculum developer, and I feel that my biggest argument was I didn't even like the November start. I wanted somebody to be hired this summer to start the school year this year. And I know that the staff wants that. And then of course, trickling down, of course, the kids. We've needed one for a while. That's been one of our biggest complaints with the past superintendent, was that was a position that was desperately needed. And I feel the same way. I feel like the message is not going to be well received. I feel that the staff will feel let down. I'd love to see both of what you're saying. In a perfect world, I'd love to see the hiring process start now. us not wait till November, have somebody start as soon as we can. And then have what you're talking about, like the specific, people come in. I'd love to see the curriculum developer to be a part of that.
Yeah, I
So
just
then
think we
they-
don't have enough money for both of those things. I think that sounds great too.
Right, well,
But
that's what
I'm
I said
gonna
in a
look at
perfect
Kim
world.
and she's gonna say, we are not budgeted for that.
Kim can find the money.
Kim's the best, come on.
I'm not, I do believe that we need to find somebody soon, is my stance.
Lucy?
Well, I had my hand raised, and since no one is talking, I figured I'd sneak in. First of all, I'm gonna look at it from two areas. First of all, I'm going to highly depend on our superintendent's recommendations, because the experience that she has in curriculum development is extensive. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in listening to what Linda said, if we have other professionals coming in, consultants coming in during the year, you're going to refine what the needs are in the district, which therefore gives you a better way to weed out any applicants for the curriculum director position in the fall, to pick someone who's going to fit those needs, or have the expertise, not fit, but have the expertise to fit those needs, because people do come in with different experiences. So I think all in all, I agree that even though, yes, I would like to see a curriculum director, I would have liked to have seen them in September. We're here now, and I think we need to wait. I agree with Dr. Leggett, and I agree with what Linda said.
Yeah, and I also want to just throw out I think, we've talked about the fact that we as the board want to start extricating ourselves from the position that we have found ourselves in and making decisions for the district. To me, this is one of those, if we look at the kinds of decisions, right, there's an executive decision. Thank you, Sydney, for not having this be an executive decision where you make it. You came to us for input. So I see this as an input decision. And then it's not a joint decision. Like, we aren't the ones making the decision, Sydney is. And so I feel as though you have heard our input, and it is not our decision, it's your decision. And I really feel as though we need to start really living that, because we've said we don't want to be making decisions like this. And so I feel like we kind of need to be living that. It's not our decision, it's Sydney's decision.
Thank you. Thank you for that support.
Yeah, I can't agree more. We all sat and were unanimously excited for Dr. Leggett to be here, and we need to take her recommendations seriously, and we need to have trust in her and faith that what she's asking for is what the administration needs, what Dr. Siegel needs, and her support, and what our district needs.
Yeah, I'm all for this board not micromanaging anymore, so, but it was just purely kind of my opinion. I think that there's gonna be some negative feedback, and then that's, also needs to be planned for.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right, we'll put trust in you to make that decision. Bob, policy review.
Yeah, this is a second read on 3 of our last policies we've gone over. The first is the diversity policy in 6001. This is a statement of diversity that was added. And the equity and diversity policy we used CABE policy, and that will be located in the 1000 series. So the longer version of what's going on with policy comes really early in the process. And so those are the 2 big ones. The organization is currently 61.5.5. We recommended no changes to that. It's really about having student organizations and having approval for their organization, but there's no changes. So I would recommend a vote to adopt all three.
We have a motion to adopt diversity policy 6001, equity and diversity key policy, and organization 6145.5.
So moved.
Linda, second
Second.
by Jason. Any discussion on the second read for these? I just want to thank Linda. You did a lot of work in trying to organize where these need to be and what they need to be. So we thank you for that work.
I live to serve.
And we'll miss you on policy.
No,
Sorry,
she's
sorry,
taken
Bob.
the time, so she's come. Remember, you didn't get roped out that quickly,
Oh, man.
right? No more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
And
I'll abstain. Cause I wasn't here for the first one.
Christine abstains. All right, motion passes. All right, committee reports.
Lindsay, do you need to do a roll call since some of us are online, individual?
There weren't any
or no?
no's. I think we're okay on that. But
Okay.
issue we can come back and revote, but I think we're good.
The building committee met on June 18th. It's like 10 pages of minutes, so if you need to look at detail it's there. First thing they did is recommend the hiring of diversity construction for the swing space construction. That was approved. They've talked quite a bit about portables, and the portables will be made new. They looked at the current ones and determined they were not usable. So new ones are being made, and the one is being made. We then went over the dessert. The QA&M revised their layout of the plan by moving the tennis courts and pickleball courts to behind the school. And that allowed for more parking to be put over on the left side of the parking lot and eliminate some of the parking in front of our neighbors. And we'll have a more discussion about that in a second. The testing for the septic system has been started, and there's been quite a bit of discussion on the swing space to whether or not to put a permanent wall or temporary wall in one of the classrooms and remove the rug and a few things like that, and that's going on. We've also made a number of motions to pay a number of bills that Kim brought forward, and those were all approved for various work that's been done so far. Lucy asked that we contact Middlefield to see if they were going to plan or they were interested in using Memorial School in the future as an emergency system. We determined that it couldn't be a full rated emergency because it doesn't have all the equipment that's necessary, but it can be used as an area to store house equipment and store some folks during an emergency. But Bob Garantino is responding on that. We also, the traffic counts have been done, and VHB is working to put that in a report. And we looked into hiring a commissioning agent. A commissioning agent is one that you hire to make sure that the equipment that is specified gets installed. So they go through all the documents and make sure what we bought is actually in place. And we went out to bid for that commissioning agent, or
We have the RFP ready. but
the
we haven't.
RFP is ready, and that will be out soon. We also had quite a bit of discussion with Thomas Maccook and Judy Rand, who are the neighbors who actually originally sold the property to the school. They were very concerned about the runoff from the parking areas and from the pitching field. There was quite a bit of discussion with them about what we could do about that. And there was a separate meeting, I think Lindsay attended on site you can add to that. I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, it went really well. The neighbors came and the president for Coggin Soccer came and we went through a lot of the issues that they had. And the architects and ONG were able to make it so soccer can go all the way through November. So they're gonna have their full season there. And the neighbors were really appreciative to some on-site, Rusty's like a magician. He managed to walk and write plans at the same time. So we'll be sending out, with the building committee, a change in the schematic design of the outside, that's the word for it. Where the
Site
parking,
plan.
where the parking comes away from that property, and allows for more, egress and a berm there so that the neighbors have more privacy while still making sure that, we get everything packed into there. So it's really well received by them and, they know that ONG and QNM is going to keep talking to the neighbors and any issues they have all the contact information for the architects and the contractors.
We also discussed, finishing up the lighting around the parking lots, around the athletic fields, and that'll be completed. We also talked about the track. As if you've ever driven out there, you'll see that the track is now blue. And that should be completed by August 1st, I think, is our.
Might even be earlier. I think they've already started the striping, so
Yeah.
they didn't, the anticipated issues that they thought they would come into, they didn't, so I think that saved some time. And they haven't had any weather delays, so I think they're ahead of schedule on those.
So I mean that it's a nicer color blue than what's at the end zone, but it's kind of matches the Coggin blue, so it's pretty. We had a lot of discussion on the course and the cracks and bubbling up that's occurring in there. And we talked about some short-term methods and continuing maintenance that will keep them usable, but a long-term plan to fix the tennis courts is probably necessary. We discussed that we needed to put some more effort inside of the schools rather than all of it outside. So our estimate would be close to $500,000 to fix the tennis courts, and we don't have that money for that either. So that was basically, well, we also finished the fire sprinkling system will be finished this summer in both Strong and Coggin. That's kind of a summary of a very long meeting. And there's a lot of really good minutes for it and attachments to it.
As far as the sprinklers, that's just hooking up to the city water, right?
Yes.
Getting rid of the pump.
Yeah, we don't have to use the pump station anymore, and we actually save them quite a bit of money because we don't need the pump station.
What was the savings on that, Kim? It's like 500 and something thousand.
No, we're down to 157,000 is what but we didn't have to fund it further. You know, we didn't have enough saved, but we are saved about 157,000.
I think that's pretty much it.
Right, we'll move on to public comment. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I will run the public comment. You'll have to control the inside.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll do the public comment tonight. Have any members of the public want to do public comment? If not, we go to online. Thank you. Just state your name and.
I'm Betty Dura. A few things. You mentioned earlier that the policy meeting could move to virtual. I would keep that same energy when you talk about student achievement committee meetings, because parents have been asking for that to go virtual for months so that they can attend. As Christine mentioned earlier, I did send an email earlier today to some of the board members. Most of you should have it in your inbox now. I didn't send it to the entire board because I'm speaking tonight out of a deep concern regarding the ethical implications surrounding recent actions of the board chair. It's come to light that the chair is currently being sued by a district staff member, an extraordinary circumstance that alone raises serious questions about leadership integrity and public trust. In addition, there's an instance in which the chair referred to students attending Vinyl Tech as hood rats. This kind of language is deeply offensive, classist, and completely unacceptable from anyone, especially from a person in leadership position responsible for representing all students in the district. It reflects a disturbing bias and lack of respect for young people pursuing vocational education. Furthermore, it appears the chair has worked in coordination with a member of the public to influence district fundraising policies. This raises serious concerns about transparency, potential conflicts of interest, and the misuse of public office for private agendas. These actions reflect a pattern of behavior that is inconsistent with the ethical standards we expect from our students, our district's leadership. Therefore, I respectfully call for the immediate resignation of the chair. If she refuses to vacate her position, I urge the board to launch a formal investigation into her conduct, ensuring that the public interest, student well-being, and the integrity of this board are upheld. Thank you.
Any other comments?
How are you?
Good.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jen Smith. I've been living in this town for almost 30 years. I've never experienced the kind of divisiveness and horrible behavior that I have witnessed over the last now couple of years, but more so in the last year from your Board of Ed chair. So I'm here to talk about that a little bit tonight. This is the last place I would like to be, and I give you guys a lot of credit for sitting through this on a regular basis, because there's no way I would. For those of you that really care about the kids, thank you for that. You know, there's been a lot of comments made on social media by the Board of Ed chair. And while they're all very disturbing, I want to start out with some of the ones that are directed to her fellow board members. Unfortunately, during a lot of the things that have been going on lately, we were given, you know, a lot of information from friends in town, and a lot of it I found very disturbing. So just for some examples, I found these to be particularly defaming and ridiculing of fellow board members. One of you has been referred to by your board chair as a moron. Another one has been referred to as a creep. Another one has been ridiculed for having a speech impediment and being of a certain age, which I find particularly offensive since I'm an advocate for the elderly.
I don't consider myself elderly.
Oh, I wasn't talking about you necessarily, but.
Just saying, I'm just old.
Yeah. In addition, on social media, our Board of Ed chair has been documented to call members of the school community, parents and others, nuts by name, and I'm not mentioning names here out of respect, but I have them. Losers, some are called losers because they have a difference of opinion, I guess. If that's not bad enough, there's texting and posting insults about student athletes by name. We have the documentation to show it. Okay, so calling student athletes delinquents, saying that they suck at their respective sports, making fun of them, saying they can't throw, ridiculing their parents for keeping their kids in the game because they suck and shouldn't be doing that. They should be off the team. In addition to that, we've had ample evidence of backdoor discussions with random people in the community about board business and strategy, and of assurances to these members that she'll do their bidding here on the Board of Ed, which is also, in my opinion, despicable. There's more. I want to give other people an opportunity to speak, but we've already begun providing you guys with the information, the documentation, and the proof of these behaviors. So given that, we are asking you to take action and remove her from the Board of Ed immediately, if not sooner. And I have here the bylaws that very specifically state that the Board of Education officers cannot negatively and directly affect the rights and interests of the public, just to name one thing, but also that there's a code of conduct that they should all be required to uphold. So I respectfully ask that you guys take action. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? I know that's public comment, but is there, I'm new to Connecticut, as you know, is there clapping allowed during public comment? That where in New Hampshire, there's no clapping allowed. And the reason for that is that you want the board to listen, and you want it to be about the statements and listening as opposed to the clapping. And it's a clarification.
I've never heard of them live.
We haven't prohibited in the past, but it's probably a great idea. Guys,
My name's Gwen Hutter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for volunteering your time to discuss a matter that's been heavy on my heart for well over a year. I have a house in Middlefield and a house in Durham. My own children are rising to grade 6 and 10 in RSD 13. Additionally, I've been a public school teacher since 2003. I've worked in DC, Virginia, and Connecticut. I'm an adamant believer in the power of public education. I moved my entire family from Stanton, Virginia to Middlefield to attend John Lyman School. We are nothing but thankful for the relationships and opportunities that were provided to us through that wonderful school. Lindsay Dahlheimer is neither fair nor impartial. She ran for Board of Ed under the pretense that she would work to keep John Lyman programs alive. After she was elected to Board of Ed, she actively worked to dismantle all programs that made that special school unique. My children thrived in those schools, that school with classes with 2 grades and democracy central to education. Additionally, my son played football alongside her children since about grade 2 or 3. During that time, she intimidated, slandered multiple recreation football coaches and filed DCF reports against 2 cog and chog coaches. After RSD did their own investigation, she still did the DCF reports. All were found unwarranted. Her heart and her intentions are not in the right place. She says she feels threatened and slandered. She loves to record things. How is it she didn't have recording of the times when her family were victims or threatened? Why should we at RSD 13 pay tax dollars to send her boys to another district or for homebound instruction?
Point of order.
Yeah.
The problem of her
Point of order.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Point of order when you're starting to bring students into identifiable students into a discussion. No, this is really just inappropriate, totally inappropriate.
The bullying is it?
I find this whole thing absolutely egregious
I find her a
and
bully.
despicable.
There is legal
No,
case
I'm sorry.
saying she defamed people, and you're standing up for her. I have documents where she's calling you guys names.
Listen.
This is pointless.
Go ahead, Bob.
Don't refer to this.
Well, I have another racial case that was denied and you guys did not provide outplacement for that child, but you did for hers. That's where that was going. And that is very bad. I also wanted to let you know, I'm from Philadelphia and I say what I mean what I say. I put out strong mom bear energy. And I want you to know, she told me, I know where you work and I'm on the board. And in fact, she is in the board at ACES. I've told my local representative, my principal, and the head of my HR, just in case she decides to retaliate. But I was raised to not get in good trouble and speak up for those who are afraid.
Point of order, I never stated that. That's completely
So
fine.
I'm delusional. Yeah. I question her sound judgment, her capability, and her emotional stability. She should be investigated and not permitted to run a second term. I cannot sit silent in good conscience any longer.
Thank you, then. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm Catherine O'Rourke, citizen of Middlefield, and I'm here tonight on behalf of my husband and 4 children who are in the district. We'd like to, as some others, voice our concerns about the behavior of the Board of Ed chair, who represents us in the district with her leadership position. Anyone in a public leadership position must be held to the standard of their position, remember who they represent. Recently, these serious allegations that were brought to our chair by a staff member nonetheless. We also know about the inappropriate behavior that has been said before me. And I'm not going to pretend to know all the intricacies of these allegations or the behind the scenes discussions. However, I do know that this pattern of behavior is creating chaos and unnecessary animosity within our community. Not to mention, it's interfering with the orderly and efficient operation of our district. And we have things to do, like Dr. Leggett has been already talked about, like putting students first. And there's a lot of other things to get done and not just be fighting about these things. Our children and staff need a productive, safe, and effective board. And due to our concerns about her unethical behavior, her improper handling of private personnel and student information, and our general lack of confidence in her leadership, we do not want her representing us. We're asking you, especially during these allegations, to conduct a full and transparent investigation into her conduct yourself and consider asking her to step down, especially for the duration of this inquiry. Thank you for considering this request.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Emily. I'm also a lifelong resident of Durham.
What's your last name, Emily?
Smith.
Okay.
I actually am up here, I think, for what you're assuming, which is in support of my dad and in support of Anthony DeFilio. I wanted to note that I personally played on numerous teams that they've coached, and I've watched the productive environment that they were able to foster with, 28-year-old girls trying to play softball. And they did a great job, and they had no issues, no complaints, and no crap. I just wanted to say that they were met with an aggressive and a downright inappropriate response from our chairperson on this board. And it's actually disgusting, because you're sitting here and you're forgetting the clear purpose of your role, which is to support these children of this district. I can confidently say that we did not have these issues until you got here as our chairperson. Specifically, your conduct, Lindsay, is an embarrassment to this district. I, for one, do not feel comfortable allowing somebody who clearly struggles so much with emotional maturity to be in charge of our students. I will go as far as to say that it will be incredibly detrimental to our entire community if we continue to allow her to poison this well any further. So thank you for listening.
Great.
Hi, Christina Manning of Durham. I just, one word, resign. It's the right thing. Fine.
Yeah. Any online comments? Nobody's raising their hand. Any further public comment? In person? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.